Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mike Lenz VO Podcast. My name is Mike Lenz. I'm an entrepreneur and a full-time professional voice actor and audiobook narrator. My goal is to share with you stories from some of the most amazing and inspiring people from all areas of the voiceover industry to help you achieve your dream of becoming a professional voice actor. So please leave me a review over on iTunes and join us over on the web at mikelenzvopodcast.com to be notified of each episode when it comes out. Now, get ready to be inspired. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mike Lenz VO Podcast. Today I'm joined by Emma Faye, a 2026 Audie finalist and 2024 SOVAS nominated audiobook narrator known throughout the industry as the Clean Reads Queen. Emma has narrated over 170 clean reads, and she's built a really intentional brand around wholesome, high-quality storytelling across genres like closed-door romance, YA fantasy, middle grade, nonfiction, and Christian titles. She's also the founder of Cats Meow Productions, a boutique audiobook production company focused on bringing more clean read audiobooks into the world. Emma, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
So happy to be here.
You and I met at APAC, which is the Audiobook Publishers Association conference last year. And we've worked on a couple of projects together, which is great. We just did a clean romance together just recently. And so, and I've been on your Clubhouse to do an interview with you. So I thought it'd be a lot of fun to have you on the podcast to talk about your journey. So, so why don't we start with that? Why don't you kind of fill in the blanks of your journey, what brought you into the world of voiceover and audiobook narration? Because I know it's a really neat story.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've been an actor my whole life, as many narrators are, or at least have somewhat of an acting background. I'm from California. I did the whole Hollywood thing as a kid. I graduated high school, wanted to move to LA to go to film school. I did, but I found that I was really struggling maintaining my standards that I have of content. I really feel very deeply the type of content we consume is just as important as the types of food we consume. It affects your body and your mind. And so I've always really leaned towards more wholesome content. And so it was a big struggle in film school to I was supposed to go work on all these films, and I'm like, I don't support these films, and really struggled with it. I'm also a very spiritual person, and so I took it to my higher power. For me, that's God, and I felt prompted to move, which was a huge surprise. I'm a California girl like crazy. But I ended up moving to Utah and trying film out here. That's where I currently am. They're a bit more conservative out here, so I was like, maybe they'll understand my standards a little bit. It didn't work out at all. I transferred from the film school out there to the film school out here. That's a whole nother story. No classes transferred. It was miserable. It was not fun. So I kind of put acting on the back burner and film, the entertainment industry on the back burner for a while, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And then I started just doing regular jobs. I got into marketing. Regular, I hate that word, but just like a normal 9-to-5 job. I got into marketing and actually really loved it, and found out that this was actually really, really fit my brain well. And so I went to school for marketing and all that stuff. And then I moved to a smaller town in Utah and helped to start community theater. And that really, that bug that I got bit by early on, that started itching again. And I was like, I need to do this. And at the time I was commuting back and forth to school and to jobs. And so I was listening to audiobooks like crazy. And it dawned on me one day driving that this is acting. It took me far too long to make that connection that audiobooks were acting. And so I started taking some voiceover classes and told my coach that I was interested in audiobooks. And so she told me about ACX, and we started focusing more in on the audiobooks part of things. And I auditioned for 3 books on ACX, booked my 3rd one. And now 170 later, I'm doing it full time. And what is so amazing, the biggest blessing I find is I'm able to control my career. Whereas in film, you don't really get a say of the work you work on. You get the script and you do it or you don't. You don't really get a say at all. But in audiobooks, I found that I get to control my career. I have established my brand very clearly so people know what type of content I'm willing to do. And it's made me known in the industry because they know that they can come to me for those types of books. And so that's been just such a blessing to be in control.
Yeah, and it works both ways because you by establishing yourself in that position, that does niche it down for you so that you stand out because of that. And also it's great for you because then you've kind of put out the word that you're not going to do anything other than that. So therefore it eliminates a lot of the noise that might be out there
It
that can
does.
be distracting, to a
And
lot of
we talk
narrators.
about authenticity and casting all the time, and that is part of it. And it's I there's a lot of genres that I'm not comfortable doing that I would not be a good fit for, and so it's an easy no that that's not for me. And there's even certain words that I'm not comfortable narrating, and they would sound weird coming out of my mouth, so
Yeah.
I don't do them.
Yeah, sometimes it's more effective to know what you won't do than it is to try to figure out what you will do.
Yeah,
That helps really narrow it down for everybody. So let's kind of dive a little bit deeper into that. What people who may be listening that may not know what it means for a
yeah,
clean read, what exactly does that term refer to
yeah.
in terms of the books that you do?
Great question. So it is a spectrum. It's hard to like totally define what it means because it's a little different, a little fluid for different people. But generally speaking, we're talking about books without explicit content. Now, usually when you hear the term clean reads, most people automatically go to romance. So I do clean romance. But some education that I try to get out there is that it is all genres I'm talking about. It's not just romance related. And that's one reason I personally still use the term clean reads. I know there's a lot of discourse on whether that is the appropriate term or not, and people want to use other ones. But all the other words that they have come up with speak only to the romance. So there's closed door, that denotes romance. There's fade to black. That denotes romance. So when I say clean, I'm talking about explicit content across the board. So that's romance, intimacy, those types of things. Language, so little to no swearing. Violence needs to not be overly gratuitous. And generally speaking, I'm not doing books that revolve around drug or alcohol use.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think one of the other ones, at least the one that I've used most, is sweet romance. I've
Yes.
heard that.
That has been commandeered, though, by the spicy romance people.
Oh
Now they
no.
say sweet and spicy.
Oh, really?
Yes, and so readers are very confused by that term. So I've stopped using that one.
That's interesting because some of the auditions I get, I do have to go and kind of check it, Google it,
Yeah,
and say, "Can you Google this author for me and let me know what?" Because oftentimes from the auditions, you don't necessarily know,
yeah,
so you do have to do your due diligence to make
absolutely.
sure that in fact it does meet what it is that you're willing to narrate. And we both have been blessed with the ability to work consistently in this industry, and it so that's a blessing that I don't think either one of us, I can say that confidently, take for granted. But it does take a lot of work to get to that place.
It does.
What was that journey like? Because a lot of listeners who are listening to this podcast may be newer to the industry
Sure.
and think, "Oh, this is great. I'm going to go buy a computer and start auditioning for audiobooks, and I'm going to get a whole bunch of them, and I'm going to quit
Yeah.
my day job." So, which may hopefully, I pray that happens for you. However, for most of us, it is a relatively long journey to establish yourself within the industry. What has that journey been like for you? How long did that process take, and what were some of the obstacles that you encountered and had to overcome along the way?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest obstacles is with clean reads. When I first started out, I knew from the beginning that I had certain boundaries I wouldn't cross. And I was told by more than a few coaches when I was starting out that I would not make it if I branded myself in clean reads. That if that is what I wanted to do, I should just give up now because I wouldn't make it. And they were coaches that I respected, and that was really hard to hear from them. Or at least were well respected in the industry. I may not have known them well, but they were big names. And it's like, okay. But I'm also the type of personality that if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yep.
So maybe in a way it was a good thing because it made me try even harder. Um, and so that was one of the biggest obstacles is just knowing that that I would have a steeper hill to climb than other narrators in that way. And it still happens to this day. I say no a lot. There's still a lot of projects that come through that I say no. And so I've learned the value of saying no. I've learned that there is power in saying no. And I think that goes for everybody. It doesn't matter if it's saying no for content reasons or scheduling reasons or whatever it is. There is so much power in saying no. Just last week, as a matter of fact, HarperCollins reached out, direct offer. I've been trying to get in with HarperCollins for years. I've never worked with them. They gave me a direct offer. And I looked it up. I vetted it like I do all books before I accept or audition. And I did a keyword search. So for me, the F word is a word that I'm not going to narrate. And there were 22 F words in the book. And so I wrote them back and I said, thanks, but no thanks. Appreciate you thinking of me. This is not a book that fits my brand and I wouldn't be comfortable narrating. And it's hard to say no, especially to someone like HarperCollins, because
Sure.
you have it run through your head that it's like, oh, they're never going to hire me again. They're never going to think about me again. And it's just not true. Those are lies we tell ourselves
Yes.
because they don't want to cast someone that's wrong for the book either. They probably just saw the main character and the main character fit me fine. And they said, oh, I think Emma would do a good job. They don't read the books ahead of time, generally speaking. Some do, but most don't. And so, it's hard to say no to someone like them, but at the same time, it's easy because I've already set that boundary. I've already set that in place and to say thanks, but no thanks. And then what undoubtedly always happens, and personally, I feel like it's a blessing from on high. When I say no to something that is about my convictions, undoubtedly something else comes. 3 days later, I got 3 offers. I got 2 from Scholastic and 1 from Christian Audio just 3 days later. And so it's beautiful how it works out. And again, whether it's a content thing, whether it's a belief thing, it doesn't matter. If you say no to something, I believe you don't miss the opportunities you're not meant for. And so it's okay to say no. Other doors will open. That is a universal rule. One door closes, another does open.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. And it's very hard to say no at every stage of your career.
yeah.
And I know people who are new to the industry are like thinking, oh my gosh, I could never say no. That's impossible for me to do. But there is power in no. And I even remember being at an APAC conference a number of years ago, and Andy Arndt had talked about the power of no, how she had to say no to somebody to a publisher who was in the Big Five. And the Big Five are like the Big Five publishers, those of you listening, who are
HarperCollins is one of them.
HarperCollins is one of them. I may not get them all. Hachette, HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, Simon & Schuster, and
Macmillan.
Macmillan. So
Although Source Books is giving them a run for the money. I don't know if you saw that from
no.
Publisher Weekly I think it's been a few months now. Publisher or Source Books sold more to kick Macmillan out of that bottom
Ooh.
spot for the
Ooh.
time period. So Source Books
Interesting.
is getting up there.
Interesting. So a new Big Five member.
Yeah.
So those are just those of us in the narrating industry, audiobook industry. We want to aspire to be able to work with as many Big Five publishers, just because they typically get really good books, and so you want to be able to narrate for them. So anyway, but that's not a prerequisite or requirement for being a successful narrator. I don't want to get that to be the message. But she had said at this conference that she had to say no to one of them, and she said it was so hard to say no because of for scheduling conflicts. And she said within a week or maybe 2 weeks later, she got an email from them asking her about another title, but they wanted to get on her calendar in advance. So
Yeah.
she said, by saying no, I all of a sudden raised my status because
Yes.
they're like, uh-oh, Andy's really busy.
We
We better
want
get on
her.
with her sooner. And why is she so busy? People must love her.
Yeah.
So there is power in no for many different reasons.
Yeah, there is.
And, there's only so many hours in the day. So we have to be careful of maintaining the commitment we make to the titles that we do commit to, that we're not, we're not speeding through some title because we're trying to shove a bunch of titles in to a calendar opening that
And that's
we
just going
really
to burn
shouldn't have
you
done.
out.
It's going to burn you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to burn you out for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you for kind of clarifying what that means, what the clean read means. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because I had a conversation with one of our common friends and coach PJ Oakland,
Mhm.
that I had a company reach out to me for a title that, and it would have been the first time I was going to work for them as well. And I knew that the content wasn't something that I was comfortable with. And same exact thing. And I still haven't worked with them, but they do submit me for other titles. So I haven't gotten off the radar. But the point of the story is that when talking with PJ about it, he's like, look, they're not going to hold it against you. In fact, it's going to clarify for them what you want to do. And they're
Yep.
going to make a note and they're going to say, okay, this is what Mike wants to do. So I will keep him in mind for this. That actually makes their job easier, not harder. They're not going to get offended that you say no. They're just offering it to you. And especially if you give them a legitimate reason why, then they're going to respect that. He said there's nothing bad that will come from saying that to them. So it was a very, very similar. And I know for a fact, I don't remember because it was a little while ago, that my calendar was not, I didn't had no white space on my calendar. It
Yeah.
wasn't as if because I didn't pick that I had no other work. More work came in and it all filled up. So,
Yep.
It's a very, very similar story.
Yeah, scarcity mindset is real. I mean, we always, we're scared of losing that opportunity, but opportunity cost is a thing. And also there's an opportunity cost to taking something. So
That's right. That's
figure
right.
out what's more important in that moment for that project. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about kind of your workflow because you're
yeah.
working full time.
Mhm.
And a lot of people want to know what's kind of a day in the life of a narrator look like, from prep
Yeah.
to pickups to all the things that we have to do besides even narrating,
Yeah.
what's a day in the life look like for you?
Yeah. I just want to go back to something you said of listeners, the big five is not the end all be all. Just for context. So I've been doing this going on 7 years now, and I just worked with one of the big five 4 months ago for the first time. That was my first big five publisher. And I've been doing this full time for almost 4 years now. And that was my first big five. So it's not, and I was still working full time and still very successful without it.
That's a great point to make because even though they're the big five, they don't produce the most books.
Yes,
They're
they're
right.
not the only name.
They're
Yeah.
not. And there's other. So again, just to clarify, the big five are publishers, and then there's producers who
Yeah.
produce some for the big five and also for other authors and other companies. So there are publishers and producers out there. And so, yeah, there's plenty of work
Yes.
beyond the big five that is not necessarily, you don't have to work for the big five to get work. That's
Yes.
what we're trying
Yeah.
to say.
Exactly. And I do a lot of indie work as well. And so I have about 50-50 of indie versus publisher work. And so there's a whole other ball game. And that goes into my workflow as well. It depends on who I'm working for. If it's a publisher production house or if it's an indie author, my workflow might look a little different day to day because when I'm working with indie authors, I'm doing a lot of hand holding. I'm explaining the whole process and even helping them with distribution questions and those types of things because they don't know anything about the industry quite often. Whereas if it's a publisher or production house, my job is to prep the book, narrate the book, send off the raw files, and that's pretty much the end of it. But where if it's indie, I'm talking to the author quite extensively throughout the whole thing. So, a typical day, I mean, I do my admin stuff in the morning. One thing I've learned is doing this job, I have learned a lot about me physically and my body. I know that I have to go to bed by 11 o'clock every night or my voice is not happy the next day. I've learned dietary changes. I don't eat a lot of dairy anymore. And I was vegetarian before then, so I'm pretty much a vegan now, which is challenging. Um, but those types of things, I drink a ton of water. And I've also learned that my voice is the best between the hours of 1 and 5. And so that's my record window. So I do admin stuff in the morning from about 8 to noon. I'm doing computer stuff. I'm doing reach outs. I'm any kind of marketing, my social media. If I am coaching at all, I do those in the morning hours and then do a lunch break with my husband. He works from home, so we do lunch together. And then from 1 to 5, I'm in here in my booth recording that whole time. So, and then evenings, I'm often doing my prep work in the evenings because my husband narrates on the side. And so we do a lot of books together, which is really fun. And because he has a 9 to 5 corporate job, he can only record in the evenings. So he'll jump in the booth in the evenings, and that's usually when I'm prepping my next project.
Oh, that's neat. I've been trying to talk my wife into doing
Yeah,
narration. She won't do it. She won't do it.
it's so fun.
She's just not. I just don't think it's ever going to happen. But
That's fair.
there's so many good things in there to unpack because I know, well, again, personally, people don't even think about what diet and sleep mean
Yeah,
to your vocal performance.
yeah,
Your vocal cords are your instrument. And if we're not getting enough sleep and we're not eating properly and hydrating properly, 100% affects our performance.
it
And
will.
the days that I don't get enough sleep, I can tell. The days that I don't eat, and we narrators are very hypersensitive to the food we put into our bodies because
Yeah,
if our stomachs are grumbling for any reason, whether
the
we're
worst.
hungry or whether we ate something that's not digesting well,
Yeah,
we're going to hear it on these
totally.
microphones, So, and that's one of the frustrations of
Yeah.
my life is that is
Yes.
stomach grumbles. So I've kind of learned,
Yeah.
when I can eat breakfast and how much time I need to give myself to digest. So again, I will do a lot of the admin stuff in the morning after I eat because I know it's going to take about a half hour for my stomach to stop digesting,
Yep.
grumbling. And so we start to learn these little idiosyncrasies of our day, which I think are really important. And also you talked about reach out and that's reaching out to potential people who might hire you, reaching out to because I will talk about your production company as well, potentially reaching out to authors who may want to work with you on the production side,
Mm.
as well as reaching out to producers and publishers who may want to hire you as a narrator. And that's a really, really important piece that again, I want to reiterate to people that no matter where you are in your journey, and you and I are full-time recording every day consistently, and we still are reaching out and
Yeah.
we are still connecting with not only people who haven't hired us, but also people who have hired us, just to let them know that we're still here and
Yeah.
not in a spammy way, but in a way that's just kind of a short, sweet message saying, checking in, how you doing? Here's some titles I've been working on. Here's a link to my Audible page or whatever page you want to send them to, and hope you're having a great week. And that is really important because a lot of these casting directors and producers are inundated with emails all day long. And so you don't want to necessarily bug them, but you do have to stay in front of them.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Yeah, there's a balance there. But the hustle is real, man.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, aside from people just think it's reading a book aloud. It's much more than that. And even if they get that part down, they don't understand necessarily the business side and the actual getting of the gigs. It's exhausting. That's honestly, sometimes I'm doing that more than I'm actually recording. Like sometimes it's like a 70% hustle, 30% recording, right? It depends
Right.
on the season, but reach outs are such an interesting thing, and they're kind of, I don't know, maybe a necessary evil is the right term for it. And I think probably producers and publishers probably feel the same way. Like they like them to the extent where it helps them cast, but they do get inundated with them. It's a lot to go through. And so for anybody listening, don't be offended if you don't hear back from a publisher or production house. More than not, they're not going to respond. They have too many things. But if you're doing your reach outs well, and what I mean by that is including good castable information in your reach outs, they will find your email when they have a need because they will go to their email database and do keyword searches for different topics and different genres and different accents and those types of things and then your name will pop up and they'll read that email. So fill your reach outs with very castable items on the publisher producer side of things. And there's the indie author side, which is a different ball game in and of itself. You don't necessarily include those castable things in there. Usually you're talking about a specific book when you're reaching out to an author. But yeah, there's reach outs take a lot of time and it's an ongoing thing. I interact with a lot of narrators who have been doing this for a very long time, and one thing that I've heard from narrators who have been in this more than 10 years, 10, 15, 20 years, are a little frustrated by how the industry has shifted in the way that they used to just get books handed to them.
Mm,
Yeah, they would just get an email saying, "Here's your next book. Here's your next book." And they would book out months in advance. Whereas now there are so many narrators in the game. that it is harder to get the gigs. There's more auditions than ever before. You don't get as many direct offers. Part of that is authors have more control than they've ever had in the industry. They've started to maintain some rights in casting and approval and those types of things. There's representation, DEI initiatives, which are super important, but that is shifting how casting gets done. And then of course there's AI, but I don't try to think of that as a competitor. I have lost jobs, of course, but I know I'm better than it. So it's there and I just kind of keep it there.
Yeah. I seem to be less worried about AI now than I used to be,
Yeah.
because I do think the consensus is starting to turn away from AI in the audiobook world for sure.
Yeah.
Now in short form voiceover work, not so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
7-second, pop-up ads that show up on the internet.
Yeah.
That's probably AI
Yeah.
majority of. But the longer form where people are literally talking to your ear for 10 plus hours
Hours on
potentially,
end. Yeah.
that human connection is still alive and well. And I
Yep.
think the attempts to try to replace us with AI have actually backfired. And a lot of
I
the
agree.
companies are saying, tried it, not
Yeah.
not
They're
going
seeing
there.
the reviews from the readers who
Yeah,
hate it.
not good,
So
not
yeah.
good. So that's thankfully that's a
Yeah.
blessing for our industry. Um, I want to talk about Cats Meow, but before we
Yeah.
do, I do want to acknowledge some of the industry recognition that you've gotten. So I mentioned in the intro, um, Audie finalist this
Yeah.
year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
SOVAS nomination. So you're getting. I guess what does the industry recognition mean to you? What do you think most contributed to this? Is it your craft, your strategy, relationships, mindset, or maybe it's something else? Like what do you attribute that to?
Okay.
And how do you view that type of major industry recognition?
Yeah. I mean, it is such an honor to be nominated for either of those. They have hundreds of submissions. I heard that this last year for the Audies, they had record numbers. I don't know what those numbers are, but they had record numbers of submissions. And it's humbling to be one of those finalists. Part of it is of course performance. I hear from a lot of people. So I do coaching. One of my classes I do a goals class. And I don't like the way a lot of people do goals. A lot of coaches teach on goals. It's, just write your goal out and let's work towards it. And the goal is often, I want to win an Audie. And it's like, cool, but you have zero control over that. So for me, goals have to be in your control. Goals are going to feed a dream. Like it's a dream to win an Audie, and those are beautiful. You should have aspirations and dreams, but they're not goals because they're not in your control. Because then at the end of the year, when you're reviewing your goals and you didn't hit any of them, you're going to feel like a failure and discount everything that you actually did during that
Right,
year because
right.
it wasn't your quote goal. So for me, I have a goal of submitting a handful of projects to award shows every year. So both of those awards that I was a finalist for, I self-submitted. And then the other thing that I have control over is I have control over my performance. So my goal is to give an Audie-worthy performance on every book that I'm doing. And it is something that I kind of keep in the back of my mind. And there's times where you're recording where you just kind of check out. There's sometimes where books are harder, or you're having a bad day, or you have a headache, or whatever it is. There's times that we all check out, and we have to check in with ourselves to be like, oh, no, get back in it. Like, do this well. And because, especially if it's a book that I'm like, I think this could be an Audie nom. I'm like, no, if I want to submit this, it's got to be the caliber of Audie nom. So it is one of the things that helps me check back in to books. There's many other things. Just the fact that I need to like to give
It's
honor,
our job.
respect the book. But it's in there with everything else, and
It's a
so
good motivator for sure.
it is, yeah. So those are the things I have control of, my performance and then actually submitting for them. And so the categories I submit for tend to be some of the smaller categories that don't get quite as many submissions. I doubt I will ever submit in the romance category because it is the largest
Yeah,
category and most of them are spicy and I don't do spicy content. So it's not likely going to be a genre I'll ever get a nom in, and that's okay.
that's okay. Absolutely okay. Yep. That's a great answer. And I love that as that motivation to think, is this Audie worthy to try to get yourself back in the groove? Because yeah, I mean, that's what we're paid for, is to
Yeah.
be in the groove and to be focused and to deliver a performance that the author would be proud of.
Yeah.
So, and when we're up to our eyeballs in work, it's hard sometimes to not just be plowing through it, and you've got to pull yourself back and go, nope,
Yeah.
tell the story, tell the
Yeah.
story, you know?
Yeah.
So I love
Feel the
that.
story. I think that's something PJ, we
PJ,
talked about
feel
him
me a
earlier.
story. Don't tell
Feel
me a
me the
story.
story. So yeah, we got to feel it. And sometimes you do check out and you gotta reconnect back with your body and with your mind. And sometimes you got to step out of the booth and take a break. And it's part of getting to know yourself that, like I
Yeah.
talked about, like this career really has gotten me to know myself in ways I never had before.
Yep. And also circling back to what you said earlier about your workflow and your workday. Um, again, a lot of people think, well, I get to narrate audiobooks and gosh, I just get to read books all day and it's so easy. I just
Yeah.
sit around all day,
Only.
and it is a lot of work. The one luxury that I would say that there is for this is the flexibility that you have in your day, that
Yes.
you can craft your day the way you want it to.
Yep.
So you record best between 1 and 5.
Yeah.
So you have the luxury of being able to say, okay, I can craft my day
Very much
around
so. Yeah.
a schedule that allows me to do this, as can I. And my wife also works from home. So having the ability to have lunch together, have breakfast together, have our coffee in the morning together, and talk about our day and not have to rush off to work.
Yeah.
Those are some of the things I try not to take for granted because I did work. I did own my own
Yeah.
business for a number of years, for decades, and I knew where I had to be every minute of every
Yeah.
day. And to all of a sudden have that flexibility, some people really struggle with that
It's
because
hard for
all of a
many.
sudden
Yeah.
they don't know how to control their day because
Yeah.
it's not being controlled by somebody else. So I think that there are tools that you can do for that as well. Like I used to I have a journal right next to me that I use for my to-do list and to write notes and quotes and anything that's on my mind. But I used to keep track of it like specifically almost minute by minute and track it depending on whether it was something I was doing that was personal, something that was actually narrating or doing a voiceover project, and something that was like marketing related. And I'd put little indicators back next to each one so that I knew how much of my day I would go back over the week and say how much of my week was I spent. Did I spend marketing? Did I spend actually working? Did I spend on personal? So that I wasn't skewing too much one way or the other. And I think that would help a lot of people, especially when they do start to do this on a full-time basis and have come from a structured 9 to 5 to a non-structured day. Sometimes that's really hard for people to do.
Yeah.
So being able to do that, I think,
I love that.
is a big challenge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about coaching because you and I both do some coaching. We had talked about before we went on that I have a very small audiobook narrator workout that I do that only has about 5 people on it for each workout, and it's a great opportunity for narrators of all levels to come together and not only do performance but also get feedback and give feedback because we talked about before recording that the learning the craft performance is important, but also listening. So getting your Audible membership or wherever you listen to audiobooks and listening to audiobooks to hear how other narrators are narrating, where you might be able to pick up some tips and see how they're performing. Not that you have to mimic them, but just understanding the industry. I think listening is just as important as how you perform. So that's a small group, and I've come to find out that I love doing it. And I know that you also offer coaching. So what are some of the areas that you want to focus on in your coaching world, and where do you bring value to people that might want to work with you?
Yeah, I do. I enjoy coaching. I do marketing coaching. So I talked about how I got into marketing before I found my way back to the entertainment industry. So I have a bachelor's degree in digital marketing, and I've found that most narrators don't know how to wear that marketing hat. It's not a hat they have ever had to wear, so why would they know how to do it? Many of us have social media personally, but have never really had to use it as a business. And so I teach a lot of classes primarily around social media because that seems to be the biggest question for narrators is how do I use that as a job, as a business. And so I do social media classes. I teach Canva. So Canva is a photo editing software. So I teach people how to use that as a narrator, make some templates that are just drag and drop, change it out every time type thing to make it easy and streamline. I do some goal setting classes. I've done branding. I do a lot of branding classes. And I think those are my major ones. Yeah. So social media, Canva, and branding, and then within that, it spreads out from there.
So
Different. Those
people
are
can work
the
with you
umbrella.
one-on-one. They work
I
with
do
you
offer
directly.
one-on-one. I do a lot of classes though. So I hold classes and I really enjoy the class structure more because I love the questions that everyone else comes up with. So have a nice, I love having around 5 to 6 people in a class. I think that's the best amount of people. But I'm also always happy to offer one-on-ones as needed for people. So
Yeah, and I've had people say, "Why don't you do this one-on-one?" And I have done it one-on-one, but I'm like, there's something special about a group, just like
yeah.
you said, giving feedback to one another, and you can feel that synergy. And
Hmm.
not that you can't feel that one-on-one with somebody that you're working with, because I have, we both
Yeah. Yeah.
have done that. But and also just from a time efficiency point of view,
Yeah.
when you can
Yeah.
get 5 people in a room and you can be
Exactly.
working through a lot of stuff and you're
Yeah.
telling 5 people at once instead of one person at a time, now you can provide that coaching within the scope of your schedule,
Yeah.
that
Exactly.
you have to take into
Well,
account as well.
and sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And so someone else might ask a question and it's like, "Oh my gosh, I did have that question and I wouldn't have even thought to ask it." So
Right.
I love, yeah, the synergy, just having more people there to talk with and bounce ideas off of. And me as I like to see myself more of as a facilitator. Like I'm
Hmm.
facilitating this conversation while giving you actionable items.
Yeah, I love that. And social media is so important. I've talked about that with other guests on this podcast, how it's become so critical to what we do just to get establish our brand, to get our work out there, to, not just be shouting about our work, but
Yes.
also developing relationships with
Yeah.
people who want to follow us,
Yeah.
so that
Readers,
you're a real
authors.
person,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
and it's critically important. And it's
Yeah.
not, and it's hard to do well, it's hard to do alone,
Yes.
and it's hard to figure out by yourself.
Yeah.
So people like yourself who have that expertise, I think listeners really should take advantage of that,
Yeah.
because not only is it important, it's really hard to try to reinvent the wheel.
It is. It is. And yeah, that's something I teach is try to make it as simple as possible. A lot of times what I see from most narrators is they're overcomplicating it because they don't know. And like even just a simple principle of reusing your content. Like you can take one idea and you can make 3 different posts out of it, or you take that same post and you post it again 3 months later. Like you can reuse content, those types of things. The other biggest thing that I get from people is we talk about consistency on social media, and consistency is very important, but when people hear that, they think that means posting every single day, but it doesn't. Consistency literally just means being consistent when you post. If that's twice a week, that's okay. Twice a week is just fine, but be consistent with that twice a week. So I try to break down those barriers in my classes to show that it can be simpler than we make it out to be, because humans have a tendency of making things more complicated.
Yes, I did. I think I remember some quote that I had heard, maybe I'm paraphrasing, that people don't rise to the level of their talent, they fall to the level of the systems they've created for success.
Oh, yeah.
So because that's true,
Yeah.
because it's all about systems.
Yes.
How do you effectively get through your day as a busy narrator? Systems.
Yeah.
How do you
And you
market
find a
yourself?
system that
Systems.
works for you. And I think there's power in that. Not one size does not fit all. So figure out how your system works.
I've got spreadsheets and whiteboards and, all over the place, because that's what
Yeah.
works for me.
Yeah.
That's what works for me. And I got my to-do lists, and that's what works for me. And
Yep.
when it gets full, I turn the page and have the next to-do list, and I just keep
Exactly.
going.
I love that.
And just keeping track of things is half the battle.
Yes.
Um, so let's talk about Cats Meow Productions. So what was the impetus behind that to start a production company? Because I know that's a whole nother level of work and a whole different world than the narrating world. You kind of touched on it a little bit when you were working with indie authors, but tell us about Cats Meow Productions.
Yes, it was. I started it back in 2020. I'd only been narrating for about a year, so I didn't know a lot. I thought I did. I have learned a lot since, and it's becoming stronger and stronger, and I'm really grateful for it. So Cats Meow Productions I started because there is a gap in the industry. There is no other audiobook production company that is solely focused on clean reads. There are some that are focused on Christian, but clean reads is not always Christian. And so there just wasn't a production company focusing on that. And I realized that I'm not the narrator for every single book out there. And I had other narrators coming to me saying, I only want to do clean too, and I don't know how to do this. Like where do I find them and what do I do? And so I was like, well, let me make a hub for this. And so we specialize specifically in clean reads, the same kind of content rubric as I mentioned earlier. And so we work with indie authors, and usually it's indie authors who are also passionate about clean reads find me, or I find them. I go to conferences and things like that. And I hold auditions. I have over 200 narrators on my roster. I'm also Audiobook Empire, which is also a production company. They acquired Cats Meow Productions about 3 years ago. So I am under their umbrella now. So I'm their clean reads division, which really helped elevate us, our status, but also our systems,
Hmm.
because we were able to work together. Jess and I work really well together and our systems are very similar, and our weaknesses, like she has strengths where I have weaknesses and vice versa. And so we work really, really well together. And so it's just been beautiful to be able to produce books for other people and show that there is a desire for clean reads out there. I'm not the only one who wants it. So
No, and I love them. It's like reading a Hallmark movie.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just wonderful. And when you said Christian, it reminded me that I did do a title that was considered a Christian romance.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's another
That is a whole other, yes.
subgenre of the genre of romance is
I've done a
Christian
number of
romance.
them. Yes.
So, there's a lot of them out there. And
Yeah.
honestly, until I got my first audition for one, I didn't even know they existed.
Yeah.
So it's something that I think there's a lot of people that still don't know that they exist. And when they find out that they do exist, are thrilled
Yes.
because they can
Yes.
enjoy all the enjoyment of the romance genre
Yeah.
without having to listen to things that they don't want to listen to.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
there is space for everybody for sure.
Exactly. Our tagline is Tales for All Ears. So our books can be listened to by anybody. Obviously, we do books for all ages. Obviously, as a parent, you decide what makes sense for your kid, but your kid could walk in listening to this book, and
Hmm.
there's no problem. So
Yeah, I love that you've taken on the production world. I know I've done a number of indie titles for different authors who have wanted me to kind of shepherd it through for them, which I have, and they paid for that service. And so I know that process is more difficult, and you mentioned it earlier,
yeah.
than working with a producer where you have a very specific set of responsibilities. You
Yep.
narrate, you deliver a clean raw file, you wait for the pickups, you record the pickups, and you submit them, and you move on to your next
Go
book.
on. Yeah.
Whereas as a producer, there's so much more responsibility in trying to make sure that that title gets from start to finish. So
Yeah.
that's not a small task.
No, I do a lot of Zoom calls with authors, a lot of phone calls with authors, both if I'm narrating an indie or if through Cats Meow. We jump on, and I try to make them, especially with Cats Meow, is just try to make them empowered, that
Hmm.
that they understand this process. And I think a lot of them really appreciate the transparency in that, because it's expensive. It costs a lot of money to produce these, and so they like to know exactly where everything's going, what everything looks like, and the tools that we use. So I talk to them about our post-production team and the distribution options, and even some marketing tips and those types of things. So it's a well-rounded, full audiobook production company. So
Yeah, and that's great. So if you're an author out there listening, then and you fit into the qualifications and the genre that Emma works with, then reach out, because
And if
it
you
would be a
don't, our
great
parent
opportunity.
company does.
That's right. That's right. You have
So,
access to,
yes,
you can take care of
exactly.
whatever needs people have
Yep.
within that world. And it's such an important thing, because especially in the indie world, um, indie authors are really good at writing. They just don't understand the audiobook world,
Yep.
and it's terrifying to them.
Yes.
Rightfully so, because they don't understand it. Just like the writing world is terrifying to us. So we're
Same.
like, wait a
Yes.
minute, never done that before. How do I do this?
I teach
Um,
at a lot of author conferences, and one thing I put into my presentation is I break down what goes into one finished hour of audio. And usually it's by that point in the conversation that their eyes just bug out. And I would say 90% of the time, I have had an author come up to me afterwards and say, "You convinced me I need to hire a narrator. I was going to do it myself. You've convinced me I need to hire a professional."
yeah,
So I'm like, yes, yes, please do.
it
We
will
are
make your
trained for
life
this.
easier. Exactly, it will make
Yes.
your life easier as the rights holder
Yeah,
or
and your book
author, for
better.
sure. And your book
So,
better. Yeah,
yeah.
that's for sure.
I mean, there's always the exception to the rule, but generally speaking, going with professional is the right answer.
We would advise that. So you touched a little bit on social media and the coaching that you do, and I know that, as we said, social media is so important, but marketing in general is really important to us as professionals who are freelancers, right? We're in a gig economy, and we're trying to create websites and trying to figure out how to do outreach and how
Yep.
to brand ourselves and all those things that come with running a small business. And again, a lot of people coming into the industry might not know how to do. So, where do you fall in that world in terms of coaching and just what you do yourself?
Yeah, so I mean there's so much to it. Like you said, it's not just social media. It's marketing, it's websites, it could be business cards, it could be these reach outs that we do are still a part of marketing. It's networking, it's going to conferences, it's doing classes. So it's all of the above. It's a whole I mean there's a reason marketing is a whole industry of itself. There's a lot to it. And so just figuring out which ones work for you. Like we talked about which, got to find a system that works for you. Maybe social media isn't what works for you. I still
Mhm.
think it's important to have and maintain, but maybe that's not how you find clients, and that's okay. Um, and maybe you're better at, going to conferences and those types of things, and maybe you have the funds to do that, and that's your thing. So finding what is working best for you. So I think it's a lot of digging in, being introspective of where are these clients coming from? Where does the work come from? If you can trace back, if I would recommend everybody to go look at your books you've had over the last year and see if you can figure out where they came from. Sometimes you can't cleanly figure that out. But if it's a publisher that you've been doing reach outs to, you can probably assume that there's some correlation, if not causation, between that. So, figuring out what is working for you, and don't write off any one form of marketing until you've tried it, to see if it is something that can expand. And I think the biggest piece of advice I give all the time when it comes to branding, I'm very big on niching down, because if you want to be known for everything, you're going to be remembered for nothing because
Mhm.
it's too much. You need to niche down into something. And I'm not saying that means you only ever do one genre. That's not it at all. But for me, it's clean reads. I've niched down there. Maybe it's, a type of character that you want to niche down into, and that's what you brand into. And maybe it is genre, and that's great too. But just finding a way to be remembered for something, because then you can show them that you can do everything else. I
Mhm.
work in every genre there is, but when I reach out to publishers, I reach out and we talk about Christian, middle grade, and closed door. That is all I talk to publishers about. Most of the time I do Christian because that's what they automatically think of when they hear clean reads, and that's
Right.
fine. I love doing Christian content. I'm a Christian. It's beautiful. I'll take it. Some people don't, and that's fine too. Um, and then closed door romance, and then middle grade, because generally those are the safer ones. But I've done thriller, I've done nonfiction, I've done just about every genre there is. Some of them have been publishers, and some of them have been the indie work when I'm like, okay, that publisher really only thinks of me for this. And that's okay. I'm working, so I'm gonna go here and do
Right, to
these books
explore some
over
other
here.
genre. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And, I do a lot of Christian audiobook work
Yeah.
as well. And I am Christian as well. So it's like, I love that I get to talk about that
Yes.
and to be part of giving voice to somebody's message, to
It's
know that
beautiful.
somebody's listening to that and I'm part of that process is a nice full circle moment for
Amen.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, and I find myself doing the same thing. So you do start to get cast in certain genres, and then all of a sudden maybe I'll pop over and start doing some work in a different genre, which is a lot of fun.
Hmm.
And and then whenever I really want to explore something different, I will jump over to ACX and just see what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
And
Same.
and even to do an audition, just to
Yeah.
practice in a genre, gives you an opportunity. And most everybody, I would assume both you and I included, because you mentioned it, and I know it happened for me as well. We start on
Yep.
ACX. We start there. That's where we um, learn the ropes. That's
Yeah.
where we build our body of work. And there's nothing wrong with ACX.
No.
There's a lot of people that literally their whole career is on
Yeah.
ACX.
I mean,
They
you have to
love
vet the
working with indie
projects.
writers.
You've got to be
You have to
smart,
be
but
careful. You have to be
yeah.
careful, but
So,
it's a good
you know,
place
and
to start.
I personally don't see anything wrong with royalty share either. I know a lot of narrators are against that. I'm not against that model in general. I think sometimes it can be very taken advantage of. But in general, I think it could be a good model. I've done a
Mhm.
handful that have been great for me financially, and I've done some that have not sold anything. And that's okay. I was building my portfolio. But also what I do is I keep a handful of royalty share project spots in my schedule each year for two reasons. Well, I guess kind of three. Three, the first one is if it's just a book I'm like super interested in and it just looks fun, I'll do it on royalty share because it pays me in other ways. Like it's just an exciting thing to do.
Yeah.
Or it's a new genre I want to break into and I haven't been able to do it, then okay, like if there's a clean lit RPG out there, I would totally do that on royalty share because that's a genre I'd be so interested in if they were clean.
Yep.
So I hold back a few spots for that. And then I also hold a few spots for royalty share for marketing purposes because you get codes, you get review codes. And I go to conferences and I can do a giveaway or I've donated to a bunch of like book events that have like raffles and stuff. And so I'll put together like a little audiobook bundle. I get like a little blanket and a mug and some tea and then some headphones and then I give away some codes in this little bundle. And so it's just a marketing thing. So I just don't ignore royalty share entirely would be my advice.
And for those people who are listening, royalty share means you don't get paid up front. You get paid a percentage of the books when they sell.
Yeah.
And depending on what the success of the book, it could be fairly lucrative or it might
Yeah.
not be. But again, in the beginning, my first 5 books were royalty share, and there were more royalty share after that.
Yep.
But I just wanted to get books. I wanted to get
Yeah.
titles. So don't be afraid to take on a royalty share, even if it's just to build up your body of work. And also, if you vet it properly, there are authors that are prolific out there that have a big following, and you can do that research.
Yeah.
And if they've got a big following and a big email list and people that are buying and reviewing their other titles, it might be to your benefit to do a
Be
royalty
very
share.
good. Yeah. Yeah. You could
You
make
know
more money sometimes in some
exactly,
places. So
exactly.
yeah.
So we covered a whole bunch
Yes.
today, Emma. Thank you so much. Um, so we're just about ready to wrap up, but the question I have for you to wrap up is if you were sitting across from an aspiring voice actor, or in our case, a narrator, and you had to give them one single piece of advice, what do you think that would be?
Don't listen to the naysayers. There's always a way. Like I said in the beginning, for me, I was told that I wouldn't make it. Don't let anyone tell you that. If this is something you are truly interested in, have a passion for, or feel called to do, there is a way. It may be an uphill climb, but that climb will be worth it. So just keep forging ahead. Don't let the obstacles stop you and reach out for help.
I love that. And I love your name because our only daughter, we have 3 sons and a daughter, and her name is Emma.
Oh,
So
sweet.
very,
Thank you.
very fond of that name.
Love that.
But before we wrap up, where can people find you?
Yes, my website is emmafaynarrates.com, and I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Emma Faye Actor.
Wonderful. So go there, follow Emma, take advantage of all the resources that she has for you. And Really, just a wonderful hour to spend with you. And you are a testament to not only following your path, but also being willing to follow the path that you feel God is calling you to do and not being influenced by outside forces to affect that. And I think that's wonderful. I'm proud of you. And I just think it's a great example to people who are listening that it can be done.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your journey. And I wish you continued success on your journey.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Thank you so much for joining me today on the Mike Lenz VO Podcast. Head on over to MikeLenzVOPodcast.com for links and recaps of each show. Catch you next time on the Mike Lenz VO Podcast.